Good morning, everybody. I'd love to invite those who are standing to come and find a seat. There are plenty of seats on the gospel side here by the pulpit. And we'll get started in just a moment. So plenty of seats. I'm looking at I'm looking at an entirely empty front row, which is somewhat predictable, but there are lots of seats here. That's it. We have a pioneer. Plenty of seats in the front. I want you to be comfortable. Well, I'll make a start if I may. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for those who are joining us online, and for those who will be seeing this in some point in the future after this morning. Thank you for all that you may have done to help us get the input that we have. And I'll say this a number of times just so I hope it really gets home. But there was so much input that Hauser Walker are now having to look at their budget. No, there's so much input that it's going to take another month to actually compute all of that to have it make sense. It's thousands of comments. What a surprise that there'd be thousands of comments from All Saints Episcopal Church. I can't believe it. But it's it's not a problem, it's a great opportunity for us to spend that time, that full report. Today you're going to get a 30,000 foot, not sure what, around about there, level look at the whole thing. But we want to give you every single comment, not at all redacted, every comment. So you can search for your own comment in there. It may take you a few hours to find it, but it will be in there somewhere. We wanted you to see all of it, and it will take you a long time to look at that and digest it. Once we have that report, and it won't just be the raw data, it will be interpreted for us to see the patterns and what we should pay attention to. We will release that, and we'll make sure that there are copies. We won't make many copies because it will be too thick. We'll make a number of printed copies, and the rest of it will be available online. So I'm just going to offer the beginning for this morning's forum, and I'm going to hand over the mic in a second to Hank. So we have gone from a journey in January, although I should say that any guesses about how long the block steering committee have been in operation? We're counting in years. 8 years. I've only been here 7, but 8 years. But it feels like that. It's coming up. It'll be 6 years in October. There was a pandemic, I think. Yeah. So they have been working a long time. January is when we began our process of gathering information, of ideation, of discernment, as the church calls it, of prayerfully asking, how does God call us forward in this place? And here we are on May the 5th, and I'm going to talk more about the process that we will do after this at the end. But it's leading towards a vision and a master plan for this city block. And you can see that there's a period of discernment that it points toward the end of the year in a suitably vague Anglican way. But we're going to try to keep us on target here within a good period of time. I want to just give thanks for all that you have offered. You can't really capture it in numbers, but numbers help at least a little bit. There were 506 of you, some of you showed up more than once, came to town halls, but 315 of you were truly unique. I guess the rest of you weren't. But 315 unique visits, if you like, came. At the 10 home gatherings, we had 156 folks gathered in people's homes all across Metro Atlanta. 552 survey responses, and we had a target in mind. There's plenty of seats at the front, just saying, there's lots of seats, you're welcome to have them. There's a rule of thumb. If you can get to 100% of your average Sunday attendance, you've done really well. And average Sunday attendance has become a curious creature nowadays because it's partly in person, it's partly online. And so we've surpassed that very comfortably for our in-person attendance because that really dipped after COVID. And we're just about there with our online attendance. But that is an outstanding response. from the parish, so thank you. And 100 emails, online suggestions, handwritten notes, carrier pigeons, smoke signals from the chimney, all of the above. And I want to give thanks to one person in particular. Before I do that, could you please stand if you were a member of the parish engagement team? Who's here from the parish engagement team? You may not want to identify yourself. I know you're here. Some of you, if you were in the parish that worked with Kate Stradman, please stand if you... Would you please recognize these individuals? And I want to invite Kate just to come forward for a second. It's always a good opportunity to embarrass you if I can. Kate has led it. It's actually a team of about 25 or 30? 34 parishioners have been trying to scratch their heads and say, how do we ask these questions of All Saints? How do we engage them? And keep on working and working and working. And it has been such a gift. And I wonder, I bet a lot of you have had a conversation with Kate at one point or another, or somebody else on her team. On behalf of a very, very grateful parish, Kate, thank you so much. So Michael Gragnani is the chair of this committee, and he and I joked that when we began this work, our kids were in kindergarten, now they're off to college. But this is the steering committee for the future of our block, and as I said, they've been working for the last 6 years, and there's plenty of work ahead of this group of people. And I wanted you to see their mugshots there so you could pick them out in the crowd and talk to them. And they want to be available to you. And they have done tremendous work on behalf of this parish. And as I said, there's a lot more to come, and we will owe them a great debt of gratitude when this is all complete in terms of this stage of our process. I want to now move us on, though, to Hauser Walker and to Hank, who is here. These are folks, hopefully you will recognize Hank. He's sporting his disguised beard there in that COVID photograph, a COVID beard. But you will have seen some of these members of Hank's team at the home gatherings and other occasions, perhaps. And I'm going to hand over to Hank so that we can hear about the contents of what we've learned from the parish. Hank.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me in the back? Yep. Excellent. So thank you. We did ask for a little bit more time to get the final report out, so thanks for indulging us there. And it is a result of just the enormous amount of input. There's a volume of information to sift through, sort through, categorize, and so forth. And it is a lot. But it's not just the volume, it's the thoughtfulness of it. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. The quantity of hours that y'all have invested, not just in the time at the town halls, at the I'm sorry, Simon? There we go. Not just the time at the town halls and at the home gatherings and assembling the survey, but y'all obviously spent an enormous amount of time before each of those thinking about what is important to you and what the input would be. So what we'll hear today will be a summary. The final report isn't going to be different, but it will be remarkably more specific, and it'll include a little bit more, as Simon said, kind of patterns and some contextualization. When we started at the initial town halls, we said we always do this effort in 3 phases. There's an information gathering, there's a discernment strategic session, and then there's a concept design. And so today really represents the end of that phase, the end of that first phase where we are information gathering. So what you're going to hear today, you won't see ideas, you won't see sketches from an architect, you won't see anything like that. I'm simply repeating back what you've told us. So I don't think you'll hear anything remarkably new today, but obviously the conversation that we've had over the last few months has been more than just what to do with the block. It's about your vision of All Saints for the future. So you'll see bubbles throughout the presentation, and those are quotes from you. So we've culled through a number of them. And there are a lot of bubbles. I'm lagging a little bit. Yeah. There are a lot of bubbles to discern through, and there are areas where there's consensus. There's areas where there needs to be more conversation about what specifically to do, and there's thousands of ideas that have been put on the table about how All Saints should grow into the future. And so I do want to just say thank you for allowing us to be a part of it. It's been incredibly interesting and exciting to talk with you and hear your hopes and your vision of your church for the future. And we've been sort of untethered from reality. We haven't talked about budgets. We haven't talked about operational implications. We haven't talked about all of those things that ultimately we'll have to do. So that is the next step. So the next step in the process diagram that Simon spoke to, it had a triangle with a lot of ideas, and the goal of the next step is to narrow it down to a specific actionable thing. And again, that actionable thing could be nothing. It could be that we don't do something, but whatever that actionable item is going to be the result of an enormous amount of thoughtful discernment and thinking from this group in the room and from the committee. And so as a part of your input, one of the things that's interesting to us is understanding your character, your DNA, what makes All Saints All Saints. And I think somebody said that this effort that we're going through is so All Saints. That one of the things that's maybe not unique but special about All Saints is you are a group of thinkers who love your church. And the investment in this time that you have made and the interest in wanting to hear from every single person, the opportunity to give every single person a voice in this conversation is very much at the heart of who All Saints is. And I think that comes, that open-mindedness, engagement in conversation in tough issues is certainly connected to where you're located. Being in the heart of a city puts you forefront in those conversations of how to manage the complexities of diversity and of the daily life struggles inside the city. All Saints is permanent. You've made a commitment in acquiring the property that All Saints is on this block, not going anywhere. All Saints is so many of you in the in the home gatherings, especially talked about the peacefulness on campus and the need for that peace inside the city of activity, of being an oasis in an active, vibrant city. You're obviously committed to social service and justice. Your approach to traditional worship is at the core of who you are. You love music, and you think and talk a lot. So throughout, so many of you were incredibly enthusiastic about the opportunity for the future, and especially at the heart of that was the acquisition of the corner property that provided the full block. So the recognition of owning the whole block creates an opportunity to consider the future of All Saints in this location, connected to Atlanta in a way that didn't exist before. It offers opportunities to expand your connections and influence in the city of Atlanta. It offers potentially opportunities to expand the way that you engage with your neighbors who are in need. There's an opportunity to make the campus more inviting, more cohesive, and accessible. And there's an opportunity to consider how to have the property help sustain All Saints in the future financially. And then in addition to all that enthusiasm, we also heard some concerns and some voices of caution about not losing what you love so much about All Saints, that sense of peace that you have on campus, that the historical buildings are certainly a part of, the sunlight. There's also a concern about future generations. You know, the world is changing. Church membership in general is in decline. Younger folks, although All Saints does have an incredibly active and vibrant youth ministries, the world is moving and changing. So you voice concern about planning for and being understanding of what the future will bring us, and planning that the future, that All Saints has, the next generations of members at All Saints are as equally engaged as this community are. There was certainly concern about money, about both capital investment up front, but also considering long-term operational sustainability and the potential to fund your important ministries. Nobody said we're in a hurry. We didn't hear one person say, go as fast as you can to get something done. There's a recognition that not just the world of religion or church membership is changing, but the world in general is changing, perhaps as it always does. But there's a recognition the varsity could be redeveloped. This is an image of the Midtown Connector, which is the park project that would span from, so here's All Saints, North Avenue to 5th, with an amphitheater along 5th. So this could have a profound impact to All Saints, to daily life. So in the survey, and again, there's more detail coming, but here's a few highlights. So, and this is respondents. You know, this is respondents. So it may not be, the respondents may not be representative of your full community, but there's definitely a trend there. Yeah. And a continuation, a quarter of the respondents have kids from babies through high school. Yeah, sorry. This was amazing. This was amazing to me that half of you have worshiped at All Saints for more than 20 years, and this bottom category of 40, it's hard to know what other means until you read the comments. And almost all there are a few comments in there of folks that were at All Saints, moved away, and then came back, something like that. But the vast majority of those comments were that 31 plus isn't good enough. Most of those comments have been here 60 years. And if we had a category that was 91 years plus, we would have gotten at least one response. It's pretty remarkable. I don't know if this comes as a surprise or not, but all of you drive. Mm-hmm. And is parking improvement important to you? Who today arrived and parked with no problems? And who arrived and had it wasn't as easy? Yeah, so parking is one of those things that every time you come to campus, it's either an issue or it isn't. And parking is also one of those things that can constrain attendance and membership. So it is absolutely and should be important. The green space is something that in the home meetings we heard over and over and over again. Your commitment to green space and the design of the green space is something that we know that you are particularly interested in. So this is a word cloud from the response about what you value most about All Saints, and this is software generated. I mean, there are a few manipulations, so you don't get words that wouldn't make sense there. But this is representative of what you said. Community is obviously at the heart of it, and I think when Simon introduced this effort, he said it's not so much about the block, but it's about us as people. And 30 years ago, when you described your values, and they were articulated as a part of a similar effort, people was the essential thing. Clearly, you love each other, you trust each other, and you love your church. Another part of the survey was testing which areas you would be open to reconfiguration or reconstruction, and it sort of goes in a circle from Eggleston at 43%, to the southwest corner buildings at 91%, and so 9% of you said no to all of them. This graphic simply points out that you believe that children are the future. Engagement of children through programs and facilities is important. The question had to do with facilities for children and youth. A lot of the comments talked about children program, and the two are certainly related. But I think there's a little bit more work to do in here in discerning whether the facilities do need improvement, or whether it's the programs, what that actually means. This was another thing that I found pretty remarkable. Again, in a lot of the home gatherings in particular, there was conversation about the risk of engaging in partnerships, and getting the risk of getting in a bad partnership, the risk in giving away control, something like this. But less than about 5% of you said that you weren't open to considering nonprofit partnerships, and just over 10% of you said you weren't open to considering for-profit partners. And I think, again, this is a reflection of you as a community. You are open-minded. You are open-minded. You trust each other to make good decisions, and aren't taking things off of the table. So again, a lot of what you said, other people confirmed and reaffirmed. I think there are certain things where there are consensus. Certainly preserving the historic church and preserving the sense of place of All Saints, preserving the sense of an oasis, of an urban oasis. Activating the block, meaning that increasing the activity from especially Monday through Saturday, 24/7, having more events, more engagement with the community, reaching the next generation, creating flexibility, knowing that whatever we plan today, in 5-10 years, this group will have another great idea, and that whatever gets plan today needs to be built with enough flexibility to accommodate that. Commitment to social and core ministries was absolutely a part, and I think certainly a fundamental part, a key part of your connection to the church, and being prudent with resources, not just financial, but also land. And there were some things that most of you had agreement about, but maybe not everyone. Preserving the historic frontage along West Peachtree, that seemed to be a very popular idea, but not taken off the table entirely. Maintaining core ministries on campus, again, this is something that we heard a number of you speak passionately about, but we also heard some folks say, we don't want to make commitments that don't make sense in 5 years and 10 years. If Mac outgrows the campus, do we want to commit that they have to be on campus, or do we want to have to foster a new ministry? So I think certainly there's general agreement about keeping the core ministries on campus. but it wasn't, I wouldn't say that it was a consensus. A lot of you talked about expanding social services. A lot of you talked about improving the cohesion of the experiences on the block in terms of how the church connects to the school, connects to the social ministries. There was a lot of conversation about Georgia Tech. Not just in Georgia Tech sees North Avenue as its primary entry, but there's a historical connection to Georgia Tech as well. So many of you told stories about meeting your life partner here while as a student at Georgia Tech, and I think that spirit of engagement with ideas and dialogue. There's certainly both a value connection as opposed to a strong physical connection, and an opportunity for attracting young folks to become future members. And certainly parking is an essential consideration. Although parking, there was kind of universal agreement that parking was important, there wasn't universal agreement necessarily about what that meant. Meaning some of you said, we need to put more parking, we need to build a structure on campus, and others said, no, we're not sure, that's expensive, that comes at a cost of the land that we could do other things with, and driverless cars are coming. So there's consensus that parking's important. There's not necessarily consensus about what to do about that. And Simon did point out that even the dumpster has a strong opinion. Mm-hmm. Oops, backed up. Okay. Another area where there wasn't universal consensus is scale. Some of you spoke passionately about maximizing the opportunity, the financial opportunity, and perhaps impact opportunity by building as tall as the city will allow. Others of you spoke equally passionately about maintaining the scale, the historic scale of the campus. So I think there's work to do in discerning that as well. And then so many of you offered very specific ideas about programs, about projects, even about the way that the campus could be reorganized and repositioned. There are so many thoughtful, good ideas, and I'd say even, there were so many ideas that could just be taken and executed, and that you'd likely be happy with. So there are the next step from information gathering, filling up the bucket with ideas, to winnow down to what is the right thing to do, and that ultimately that has to be singular if it is an actionable thing. What is the right thing to do will be the next step, and it won't be. And again, these are bolded by the frequency of how often you communicated them, but it doesn't mean that this is a vote on what to do. This is simply to reflect back what you have said. But ultimately, the right thing to do will be the concept, the plan that best aligns with what you want, what All Saints wants to accomplish for the future. So the ideas. So it could be. Anything on this list. It could be something that's off of this list, but the next step is the discernment effort about what to do with all of the ideas and all of the input. So thank you. Thank you. Did you want to talk about process as the...
Very briefly. So we're going to offer some time for questions, and that's important for you to... Or statements, but no sermons. We've got people for that. So I went to San Diego, very briefly, went to San Diego and met with the dean of the cathedral there which is across the street from Balboa Park. And she had just come back from a dean's meeting of deans in North America. And probably the folks that, not everybody, but many of the deans across North America are sort of around about my vintage or a little bit more than my vintage. I started at seminary 24 years ago. And 24 years ago, nobody said to us, by the way, when you're doing these jobs in 24 years, you're going to be leading a process around the future of a city block or the equivalent. The dean in San Diego said, all of my colleagues as deans, it seems, are engaged in a process like this. And so it's a conversation that is happening across North America and further afield. Our next step is to work really hard over the summer. So think of us while you're doing something spectacular. There'll be folks in P306 grinding away. But really trying to get a sense so we can come back to you later in the fall and have some clarity. And we'll take you through. There's 3 Sundays that we've got dedicated to that. 2 of the things we'll talk about, and then I want to open up to questions, are important. One of them we've heard about already, the long-term, counting in decades, financial future of All Saints. That has always been a question on our hearts and our minds, and we have to ask that question. I think about, what am I setting up for my successor's successor as rector? What are they going to have available to them? Sometimes I'd like to say to myself, what will she have available to her? The tools available so that as rector, they can lead this church. As a vestry, they can set the budget and so on and so forth. The other thing is we need to look at each of our buildings. One word that might describe all of this process is stewardship. So we have to look at each of the buildings, and that's part of the work that will happen, and say, how are you doing? And what's your longevity like? How long would this building, what's the best stewardship of any given building to do A or do B or do C? We have to do that very thoroughly, and that's part of the information we'd want to bring back and put into the hopper as we discern. The vestry will ultimately make a decision about this, and so we have to present to them as a parish the best possible information we can. The one building we're not going to think, do we really want to, stick or twist, is the church building, of course, just to underline that. You won't come back from the summer and see a multiplex or something that will be. That's a building that we will invest in as long as, forevermore, until it just truly has become dust. And we'll pour our resources into that building because it is the heart of our life, of course, as All Saints. So I'm going to hand over the mic. We do have some time for questions, comments, anything. There are 2 mics, and if you could wait till the mic is right in front of you so folks online, otherwise they won't hear you online. But if you want to...
Hi, so I'm curious to hear, I guess, nuts and bolts of how this discernment process is going to work moving forward, in the sense that, even in things that there's broad agreement on, there are inherent conflicts. The one that struck out to me was everyone wants this to be a green oasis and also wants to be able to park with ease. Those don't necessarily align. So what's the process of that discernment like in figuring out what's really important, what we want to prioritize? How do we take this information and make sense of it into something that turns into something cohesive?
Yeah, so that is the heart of the next step, and what that'll look like is that's the work of the committee, and this is kind of the final work of the committee. And we'll be working with the committee over the summer, meeting every other week. And the starting point is agreeing on what are the goals. What is it that this master plan wants to address and wants to accomplish, And it can be, Simon just mentioned, financial sustainability, but it'll also be membership sustainability. It'll also have to do with the existing conditions of the buildings. It'll have to do with your good point, is that you can't have a garden and a parking lot. There will have to be decisions. That comes with the starting point of distilling this information of what you have said into clear goals. This is what's important to us. And then we'll test ideas. We'll test specific ideas for that alignment, and they'll be measured against that alignment. So when we come back at the end of the summer, we won't only be repeating back what you've told us, but we'll be presenting the results of that discernment effort. Who's got that? Yeah.
Do I need to switch it on? Yeah, just a couple of comments. Thank you so much for all the work that's gone into the process. I thought we were doing a lot of work with the survey, but now that you've explained what's going on, really impressed. The other thing I wanted to do was just draw a contrast with what is going on at Cathedral of St. Philip at the moment, which is basically the dead opposite. So they are planning to add a $30 million building, and the congregation is just now starting to hear about it. So I'm proud to be the opposite of that.
Well, thank you. And we work with a lot of churches, and when I said earlier that so many of the ideas that y'all put into the hat were well considered, that was actually my thought, is that if that person who had put that together was the chairman of a building committee at another church, that's likely what would happen, is those ideas. So I think All Saints is a special place. I mean, it is you are a special community. I think y'all are part of something special, but I think that's at the heart of it, is your inclusiveness and your trust in each other. Thank you.
One number that struck me up there is that 90% of the people who come here drive here, right? I live close by and walk here. Given all the towers, and I mean, there's a 75-story tower going right up the street here, all kinds of construction of residential housing coming here. Is that number realistic 5, 10, 20 years from now? In other words, I don't know where this fits into your thinking, but is looking forward, do you expect that kind of number, 5, 10, 20 years from now, or will it be 50-50 or 25-75? In other words, are you building potentially parking lots for people who will not be driving here, or whatever, or maybe anyway? Yeah.
It's an important question. I certainly don't have the crystal ball. I mean, I think if you look at what Cousins did for Norfolk Southern, they still built a ton of parking. Parking is incredibly important. But if you look at New York or Chicago, their mass transit is different than Atlanta, and certainly I think that's where Atlanta's headed. There's certainly more residential development that's happening in Atlanta that'll change things. The notion of driverless cars, that your car drops you off and then it goes and finds a parking spot. So there's who knows what it'll look like in 10 or 15 years, but that will be ultimately a decision and a choice because both sides are important. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Will we hear any interim reports as y'all go through the summer, or will the next thing back to us be the discernment piece?
Yeah, I think that the next step will be an interim piece when we're back in October. But my advice to the committee is that in order to do true discernment, there needs to be a dedicated group of people who are meeting regularly, who can contextualize and understand kind of all of those issues to ultimately put something forward. So I think in October, the idea isn't that the committee is coming back with a singular idea, and we don't really know what the committee is going to come back with because that effort hasn't happened yet. But the intent, the general intent is that the committee does hard work and in October comes back with the results of that effort, knowing that that's not the final concept, idea, actionable plan. I think it's the intent would be for the committee to recommend a master plan, and that could be something that means there is an imminent project. It could mean that no project is immediately on the horizon, that there's a phased scale or a phased set of projects. But that's a long answer to your question, and that is that there will be another input for this community before there's kind of the final concept, the final master plan. Others? All right.
I realize there are a number of steps still to come, but I'm curious about whether at the vision point or at what point in the future will there be at least some rough draft, some idea of the financial component of the plan?
That'll certainly be a part of this next step. And the financial modeling, the financial modeling will need to be multi-tiered, both in terms of capital cost. If a partner is engaged, it'll look very different than if, and I think I've mentioned to a number of you, we're currently working on 2 different projects, but 3 projects that we've been engaged in kind of represent kind of the sphere of, we're working with a church community who recently sold a part of their land to a developer, and that income is funding a transformation of their campus. So there's not a capital campaign for that church, but they are as a result of that land sale. So that's kind of one end. We're working with a number of other churches that are fully funded by a capital campaign. So this is the vision of the effort. We'll own it. We want to control it. We believe in it, and we're going to go off and raise the money to do it. We're also working with a church who started a school, and the school, the future income for the school from rents funded the development of the school. So there's not a single model, but that will be an important part of that effort of evaluating if partnerships make sense, the financial component of that, and then also just what things cost. That'll certainly be a part of the next of what happens over the summer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Because I now need to do a costume change and head over. It would be understandable if you felt, goodness me, this is taking a long time. It was a compliment and then a get on with it a comment I had. I was meeting with some folks and said, it's been a wonderful job. Thank you so much for all this you've led and this process. And can we please move on? And everybody we've spoken to, certainly if I've spoken to my sort of opposite numbers at other churches, they just say, just a word of advice, it is going to take longer than you think. And so we don't want to become repetitive with you. We're trying to strike that fine balance between boring you by repeating ourselves and not leaving out, trying to be transparent. And that's a fine balance, and we don't always get it right. I just want to note this also. We could always choose to not do this. I don't mean do nothing. That's an option. That will remain an option until we decide it's not what we want to do. We could have said, let's not have a future of the block process. We're all fine. We'll carry on. We could always choose to do that. But this is an opportunity for us. That became